Ronnie Dunn, a famous country singer, just broke decades of silence by telling the truth about Brooks and Dunn.
It will change everything you thought you knew about them. Following Neon Moon, he sat alone and asked if anyone wished to hear his voice without his well-known partner. The camera caught him leaving the stage in the middle of a song. He looked broken as he tapped his heart. What broke up the biggest team in country music? Could the truth about their breakup be even more shocking than everyone thought? Come listen as Ronnie Dunn, 71, tells it all. Dangerous health scare. That Thursday night in Indianapolis, the lights inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse were so bright they hurt your eyes. Brooks and Dunn had just started their set, and the 20,000 people in the crowd were already pumped up. They were singing every word of Boot Scooting Boogie like it was 1992 all over again. As Kix Brooks played his guitar on one side of the stage, he took in all the excitement like a pro. Then though, something didn't feel right. Right in the middle was Ronnie Dunn, who had both hands on the mic. The same voice and grit that could make you cry in Neon Moon or feel better in My Maria. But when the song got really good, something changed. He went more slowly. He moved more slowly. Under those huge lights, the guy who had been the star of the show for years didn't seem like himself. The guitarist was the first to notice Ronnie's head shaking. The band didn't miss it, but the crowd did. They've been through everything together. Long trips, bad nights, getting sick, and being worn out. It wasn't just being tired, though, it felt different. Matt Malone, a radio host, was recording on his phone somewhere in the crowd. That quiet moment right before everything changed hit him like a gut punch. Ronnie turned to look at his friends. Just a look, no words. The kind that makes sense after 1,000 shows together. People in the crowd kept singing, cheering, and having a great time. No one knew they were seeing something that would go viral online in just a few hours. Ronnie then began to slowly walk to the front of the stage. He didn't want to do it, like it wasn't in the plan. However, he reached the edge, turned to face the crowd of fans, and did something that was more powerful than any note he had ever sung. He put out his arms, but not in a way that meant thank you or good night. He seemed to be saying both thank you and goodbye at the same time. He waved and tapped his chest right over his heart. That's when the noise began. People asked, "What's going on?" Afterwards, he just left the stage. No changes were made to the music by Kix or the rest of the band. Something big had just happened. The backstage area was a mess. The crowd was still trying to figure out what was going on since no one really knew what was going on yet. Man, it went crazy after Malone posted the video the next day. It was just a short clip with the words "Feel better, Ronnie." A lot of comments, shares, and likes. Lots of people were scared. A lot of people in the comments said that Ronnie's music helped them get through breakups, missions, and hard times. For many, this wasn't just a musical moment. It was about them. There was a lot of talk. Was he sick or just tired, or was there something more serious going on? Country music message boards were busy. Not just fans were there. People here had grown up listening to Brooks and Dunn on the radio and riding in their old pickup trucks to their weddings. And Kix weren't just well known, they were famous. Things were clear by the beginning of the next week. A rep for Ronnie said he wasn't feeling well because he got sick during the repeat. That was it. Not much going on, just a short line to calm things down. Some people liked it, but they wanted more. When you've been following someone for 30 to 40 years, you want to know they're okay. Ronnie, in particular, has never been one to quit in the middle of a show. The big test came on Saturday in Rosemont, Illinois, which was the next stop on the tour. The question was asked by everyone. Would he show up? Yes, he did. Not just show up. He broke it. Everything is the same, fire, words, and everything else. He's 71 years old, but he can still light up a room. No matter what happened in Indianapolis that night, it wasn't the end. People still remember the whole thing. It was like seeing your dad or favorite uncle finally say, "I just couldn't keep going for a moment." It was real and kind of heartbreaking, but it was also strong because he came back, ended the tour, and kept going. Fans will also remember that part, not just the fall, but also the return. After that, the New Moon Tour had 3 more shows. Yes, time may slow you down, but it doesn't take away what made you great in the first place. You have 3 more chances to show that. There was fame before the real story, though. Before there were any lights, it was just 2 guys looking for a sound. How did 2 different roads come together to form one of the most famous country music duos? A preacher becomes a star. A boy named Ronnie Dunn was born in Coleman, Texas, in 1953. The streets were dusty at the time. Back then, no one would have thought that one day his words would be heard in stadiums across the country. He was just an ordinary kid from a poor home. People went to church on Sundays and prayer groups on Wednesdays. That was how things were. His friends and family thought he would become a Baptist preacher like the ones he listened to every week. Ronnie became very interested in his studies as soon as he got to Hardin-Simmons University. The Bible and lecture notes were all over his books, but something else was pulling at him from the inside. It wasn't the platform. It was music. Ronnie would sneak off with his bass guitar and play around with tunes that felt a lot more natural to him than anything he had read in class while his roommates stayed up reading the Bible. He seemed to be living two different lives at the same time. He learned how to be a speaker during the day. At night, he played music in Texas bars and honky-tonks that were heavy on smoke. Plus, those late-night gigs gave him something that studying religion never could. The music made people feel something. It felt different because it was honest, messy, and raw. They found out what he was doing in the end and wouldn't let him do it again. They told him straight out that he had to pick between being a preacher or a singer. He was only able to do one. When Ronnie picked the bass, he was kicked out right away. His family was hurt. His whole life plan fell apart overnight, and he wasn't sure what to do next for a while. A kid named Leon Eric Brooks, who would later go by the name Kix, was growing up in Shreveport, Louisiana, 400 miles away. He was getting a different kind of education. There was a lot of music in his neighborhood. The famous country singer Johnny Horton lives next door. That's why Kix wasn't really upset about chasing music. It made sense. In 1976, he went to Nashville because he knew what he wanted and did it like it was nothing from the world. Kix worked quickly. He started writing songs for other people, and to be honest, he killed it. He wrote hits for John Conlee and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, such as I'm Only in It for the Love and Modern Day Romance. These songs got to #1, and people in Nashville began to see him as a writer they could depend on. Ronnie wasn't sure what was going on while Kix was getting bigger. Once he was done with school, he put out a few songs on a small label in the early 1980s. They didn't do very well, though. One song got as high as number 59. It wasn't the big break he needed at all. And that kind of almost success made things worse for someone who had already given up everything for music. There were questions. Did he make a mistake when he left the church? Then something strange took place. One of Ronnie's drummer friends, Jamie Oldacre, put him secretly into a Marlboro talent show in 1989. He won, but Ronnie didn't know about it. Getting to record in Nashville was the prize. This felt like a tiny bit of hope after years of hard work. Everything changed after that meeting. When Scott Hendricks, the director, heard Ronnie sing, he knew right away that this guy had something. He gave the tapes to Tim DuBois, who was a big deal at Arista Nashville. It was DuBois's talent to find hidden ability. He thought Ronnie's voice needed something, or maybe someone, to bring out all of its power when he heard it. That's when DuBois thought of Kix. DuBois thought Kix had more to offer than just writing songs for other people, even though he was already busy behind the scenes. He thought he belonged on stage. He did something brave. He set Ronnie and Kix up. They didn't know each other. They had no idea who the other was. But DuBois thought that their different styles might work well together. Their first meeting wasn't very smooth. Not sure if this was going to work, but they were getting to know each other. But when they got together to write a song, something clicked. It wasn't forced. It wasn't finished well. It worked right away. They made a video, and it went viral right away. All of a sudden, they had a record deal, and their first song, Brand New Man, came out in June 1991. Nobody saw what was going to happen next coming. It had 4 #1 hits in a row, which was something no other country pair had ever done. They went from being two guys with very different lives to full-on country stars overnight. Ronnie used to wonder if he fit in music at all, but now people all over the country can't get enough of what he sings. The Coleman kid had found his friends. It just didn't look quite like a church gathering. The next thing they did would break records and change the way country music is made. But under that much stress, could two strangers stay together? 20 years of rule. In June 1991, Brand New Man came out and pretty much turned Nashville upside down. It was a surprise to everyone. People who worked in radio who were used to the usual country sound had to work hard to keep up with this new sound. The song kept getting better and better until it reached number 1. And to be honest, that set the tone for everything else. What happened next was what really shocked everyone.
My Next Broken Heart also became number 1, and then Neon Moon.
The streak ended with Bootscootin' Boogie. 4 number 1 hits from their first record. That never took place before. Not for any country music duo. At any time. Even people who have worked in the business for a long time were confused. Was this real talent or just a freak lightning strike?
Boots, Scoot, and Boogie wasn't just on the radio, it was also played on dance floors. All of a sudden, people across the country were dancing in time with each other like it was nothing.
People who aren't into country music even heard the song and paid attention.
People from Texas to New York crowded into dance studios to learn the steps.
It was everywhere. Why did it work? Because there were 2 guys at its center who couldn't have been more different from each other. Ronnie was very quiet and had a voice that hit you right in the chest. Then there was Kix, who was so full of energy that he owned the stage. They worked magic together, they balanced each other out in the best way. 6 million copies of their first album were sold, and that was just the beginning. The second album, Hard Workin' Man, also had a lot of hits. More number 1s and love on the radio. Then in 1994, they grabbed a Grammy for Best Country Performance by a duo or group. At that point, it was clear these guys weren't just popular, they were the real deal. By 1996, they'd pulled off something no one thought was even possible. They won the CMA's Entertainer of the Year award, first duo to ever do it. That award usually went to solo stars with massive stage presence, but Brooks and Dunn showed the world that a duo could bring just as much firepower. Then came My Maria, a cover of a 1972 B.W. Stevenson song. It held the number 1 spot for 3 weeks and was the top country song of 1996. Even Ronnie had doubts about doing a cover, but man, were they glad they did. It even crept onto the pop charts and brought in a whole new wave of fans. At this point, winning Duo of the Year was just expected. Between 1992 and 2006, they snagged the award every single year except one. 2000, when Montgomery Gentry briefly took the spotlight, but otherwise was total domination. And not just because they were popular, every album kept showing off their range and growth. Their live shows were absolutely massive. We're talking stadiums packed with 50,000 people. Pyrotechnics lighting up the night. Stage setups that looked more like rock concerts than your typical country show. They didn't just show up to play, they made a whole experience out of it. Some of their songs even turned into full-blown American anthems. Only in America was it used in presidential campaigns by both Bush and Obama, which tells you a lot. It had that kind of hopeful vibe that just worked, no matter who you were or what you believed in. And they didn't just make music, they gave back, big time. Kix was a huge supporter of charities, especially anything related to kids and music education. In 2015, he got the first ever CMA Foundation Humanitarian Award for all the work he'd done. His Keep the Music Playing program had pumped over $11 million into Tennessee schools by then. Ronnie had his way of giving back too. His Rock the Barn concerts, held right at his home near Nashville, raised a ton of money for places like Gilda's Club and the St. Thomas Breast Cancer Center. It wasn't just a party. It made a real difference. Their albums, almost all of them, went platinum or more. Brand New Man hit 6 times platinum. Hard Working Man wasn't far behind with 5. Even their greatest hits albums flew off shelves and helped introduce a whole new wave of listeners to their stuff. So when they announced they were calling it quits in 2009, it felt like the end of an era. By then, they'd racked up 20 number 1 hits, 2 Grammys, and more awards than anyone could count. No other duo in country music had ever done what they did. And honestly, it's hard to imagine anyone ever topping it. But it wasn't just about the numbers. They created a style and sound that set the bar for everyone who came after. They showed the whole industry what a country duo could be. And a lot of folks are still following that blueprint today. But what happens when the music fades and the lights go out for good? What do legends do when they finally step away from the spotlight? When success became a prison, August 10, 2009. The news hit like a punch in the gut for country music fans. After 20 years of owning the charts, selling out shows, and racking up platinum records, Brooks and Dunn were calling it quits. Not because they hated each other or had some big blow-up. It was something quieter, sneakier, burnout. Total soul-crushing burnout. Kix Brooks and Ronnie Dunn had been talking behind the scenes for a while. They'd done it all. The awards, the fame, the high sales.
But somewhere along the way, the spark had faded. Sitting in green rooms in board meetings, both of them started to feel it.
They were just done. Tapped out. The imagination wasn't flowing anymore.
And the whole thing started to feel more like a grind than a dream.
For kicks, moving away felt kind of exciting.
He had other stuff he wanted to try, radio gigs, maybe some film work.
There was a whole world outside of music that he was curious about. But for Ronnie, it felt like walking off a cliff.
They kicked off their goodbye tour in 2010, calling it the last rodeo. And it was this weird mix of a party and a funeral. Night after night, Ronnie stood up there singing the songs that had shaped his adult life, all while knowing that each show was one step closer to the end. Even though there were more people than ever, the noise made everything feel heavy.
After the last show at Nashville's Bridgestone Arena on September 2, 2010, Ronnie was left with a question he couldn't answer. Without Brooks and Dunn, who am I?
It turned out that the answer wasn't easy or simple. Since Ronnie began making country music in 1991, a lot had changed. He was now 57 years old. There were a lot of younger acts on the radio. Everything had changed, and all of a sudden, the voice that had ruled country for 20 years began to sound out of place. It was good that he put out his first record by himself in June 2011. It was still easy to recognize his singing, and the songs were good.
Country radio didn't care, though. DJs who used to play Brooks and Dunn songs didn't play his solo work. That hurt a lot. It stopped being fun to record sessions.
Ronnie would just carry this weight of worry with him when he went into the studio.
He began to doubt everything.
His singing, the songs he wrote, and even whether he should have been there at all. He began to lose the confidence he had built up over the years.
The people around him saw.
This guy, who used to be a mix of chill and intense, began to pull away. He stopped being there for things. He'd rather stay at his farm outside of Nashville most days than go out into the music scene, which seemed to have no place for him.
It was very hard on my mind.
Ronnie had been a part of something big for years. He felt like the Brooks and Dunn brand gave him a reason to live and a sense of who he was. He felt stuck and like the world was going on without him without it.
At night, he'd lie awake and wonder if this was the end of the ride. Everything became a chore, even interviews. The way people on the radio looked at him now made him smile and act like nothing was wrong, but he could feel it inside. They were polite, but they also seemed confused, like they didn't know what to do with him anymore. He tried again in 2014 with a second solo record released by Arista Nashville. It got good reviews. The songs came from the heart. But still, it didn't work for business. Ronnie couldn't help but feel that his sound might not fit with the new country style. He may have had his moment and felt even more alone afterward. The farm, which used to be a peaceful place to get away, began to feel like a cage. He'd be stuck in his thoughts for hours, going over all of his fears and questions. The person whose voice used to make arenas jump with joy was now wondering if anyone wanted to hear it again. Some people who had worked in the field since the beginning began to worry. They went from being a huge hit to a solo act having a hard time so quickly and hard. No one knew for sure if Ronnie would find that fire again. The one that Texas honky-tonks were talking about back then. There were more and more questions. Did I make a mistake when I left Brooks and Dunn? Was it silly of me to think I could do this by yourself? Does it help that I speak up? He kept going down because that inner circle wouldn't stop. At least in the business world, Ronnie Dunn was at rock bottom by 2014. He used to sell out stadiums and be at the top of the charts. Now he was sitting alone and wondering if that part of his life was over for good. But sometimes the biggest changes happen when everything else is taken away. What if Dunn needed to lose everything in order to find himself again? Redemption and a fresh start. It's funny that the big turning point didn't happen in a fancy studio or a huge performance hall. It took place in Tennessee on a quiet farm. Ronnie Dunn was outside, away from everything going on. He doesn't want people breathing down his neck. No stress from the radio. Not looking forward to anything. He wrote without a plan for the first time in a long time. He didn't have anyone in mind, it was just him and his guitar. It was like seeing an old friend he hadn't seen in a long time. It all made sense. The songs he wrote during that time were very different from the ones he was writing when he was trying to get radio hits. They were also much more honest and raw. There was no stress to get on the charts or win prizes. It was only about making songs that were real and helped people feel better. That was important.
He thought of the reason he fell in love with music in the first place. He put many of those songs on his record Peace, Love, and Country Music, which came out in 2014. It wasn't supposed to blow up, but it didn't.
It was important that it feel real. It seemed like him.
It was very different from the big arena-sized songs he used to sing.
Not as loud. Better and freer in every way.
Then he did something that no one saw coming. That was the start of his label.
There should be no more agents or gatekeepers.
He had full control over his time, his music, and his ideas. He was able to help out younger artists as well. People who are not sure how to stay true to themselves in a field that likes to make everything look nice. Brooks was out there doing his own thing at the same time.
He went into radio and became the host of American Country Countdown.
It worked for him, to be honest. He stayed close to the music he loved by telling stories about the songs every week. This brought together old fans of the music and new fans of it. He could just talk in the radio box, which turned into a cool little stage.
Kix can talk too.
He was crazy about country music and all of its past. Another thing he did was act in small movies. Nothing big, but enough to satisfy his need to be artistic.
It wasn't about fame or anything. He only wanted to grow and try new things.
Then, in 2014, they still hung out at one of their regular dinners even though they were no longer together. The thought of living in Las Vegas for a while came up.
It wasn't a big plan to get back on track. It was more like, hey, let's play again?
There were no tour buses, just them, some songs, and a great location. In the end, Reba McEntire asked them to meet her at Caesar's Palace. The Coliseum was a dream place.
Great sound quality and a very cozy atmosphere. And they didn't have to keep moving from city to city.
They could just show up, play, and then go home to eat dinner with their families.
It was like getting lucky in the lottery.
The event was very important for Ronnie, who wasn't sure where he fit in the country music scene yet.
Do people still care about what I have to say? In 2015, that first show gave a clear answer.
There was a crowd. They still feel electric with each other, maybe even more so than before.
It was cool that they weren't advertising a new album. There wasn't any stress. So they tried new things during that time.
Change the set list and the combinations, and have fun playing again. He told me that singing at the Coliseum was different. No, not through huge speakers. He could hear his own words. Not with all the sound of a stadium, but close up.
Raw.
It helped him remember that he still had it. He should have been on that stage. Everything that happened there set the stage for the Pretty Crazy reboot CDs.
It was a simple but brave idea.
Country stars of today were given some of their biggest hits and told to remake them in any way they wanted.
There are no rules. Really just new takes on old songs.
It was a huge surprise when the first reboot came out in 2019 and became a hit. When Kane Brown sang Believe, it felt like something new and true at the same time.
Luke Combs smashed Brand New Man. Things were going even further in 2024 with Reboot 2.
When Jelly Roll came back to re-record Believe with a 70-piece orchestra and a 30-person choir, it became a huge gospel-tinged force that filled the studio like a church revival. Then there was Ain't Nothing About You by Megan Maroney. She changed the whole mood.
It's like late night, smoky, and very slow.
Everyone was shocked, even Brooks and Dunn. They had been on tour with her for 2 years.